Hi, my name is Andrew, and I'm an engineer with the Greenplum R&D kernel team. Today, I'm excited to share with you one of the new features we're adding to Greenplum 7. One of our big pushes for this release is to improve our story around monitoring and observability. Database management systems are very complex, and when they're not behaving how you expect, it can sometimes be very challenging to figure out why. Historically, our users and administrators have relied heavily on third-party extensions or custom scripts to monitor their system's behavior. While those are great and will still have a role, we think it would be helpful to have some better tools baked right into the system. And so we've added them. So the first thing I want to talk about today are some tools that some of our users may already be very familiar with from our upstream. There are 21 statistics views described in detail in our documentation, and I have them listed out here. Each of these contains key statistics about various aspects of a running Greenplum cluster. I'm not going to go into in depth on each of these today, but let's talk through a couple to get kind of a sense of them. So, for example, PG stat all tables here contains the statistics about the activity hitting each of your tables. And this can be things like number of tools updated, time since last vacuum, modifications since last analyze, all kinds of useful things to help you understand the health of this specific table, like what's going on with it. pgstat all indexes is equivalent information for all of the indexes in your system. And so if you're really having specific parts of your schemas or your databases get hit hard, this would be where you would go to see that. The stat.io tables right below them show things like disk activity. So blocks read, blocks written, and how, each of, again, so it's, per table, per index, per sequence, but it's about the disk I/O and whether you're starting to see spikes or unexpected statistics around that. Oh, and then another view that I find incredibly helpful personally as I'm developing is pgstat user functions. So this shows the number of times each UDF has been called and the total runtime of it. So if you've accidentally written a UDF that is having performance problems, is running a long time per call, this would be a one-stop shop to go see that. For our demo today, we're going to look at pgstat wall. This view contains data about the write-ahead log activity of the cluster. A DBA may want to look at this to assess whether excessive wall writes are being generated by your queries, which can result in disk space exhaustion, delay replication, and other system stability problems. Again, I would strongly encourage, take a look at the docs for each of these. They're all incredibly helpful. But we're going to focus on this one for our demo today. So to do so, we're going to use the watch command, also new to Greenplum 7, that lets us regenerate the results of a query, in our case, every 3 seconds. So let's go ahead and run this. And what we can see here, and we'll just stop it for a quick second so we can take a look. We can see a variety of, records, wall records, bytes written to the write-ahead log. Um, we have our track wall time IO GUC turned off for this demo cluster here. So, these aren't populated, but, you can see the amount of time spent writing and syncing wall as well. And this is going to be kept up to date, very, very current. So here we have a synthetic workload, heavy insert-only workload, reminiscent of something like transaction processing. So if we fire this up, we see tons of insert statements, and then we can watch these numbers as they change over time. And you would be able to monitor this, set it up for your alerting, what have you. And this would be a great way to keep an eye on this aspect of your cluster's performance. So let's go ahead and stop these, stop this. So this is awesome. All 21 of these are super useful. But there are some challenges that you may have already spotted. So we are running this Postgres pgstat wall view on our coordinator segment. Each of these views is a per segment view. So a Greenplum cluster can be dozens or hundreds of segments, and you probably don't want to have to go run this query n times for all the different segments. And so what we've done is we've added a Greenplum only edition. So what we've done is for every single one of these 21 views, we've set up a GP underscore view. So, GP underscore stat activity, GP underscore stat wall, etc., that will go and retrieve this information for you from your coordinator in all of your segments and display it all at once in one location. Now, this is something you could probably have written yourself, right? GP dist random is pretty great. But again, we're trying to relieve the burden of customization and rule your own monitoring and make it convenient. And so you don't have to. It's here just waiting for you. So let's take a look. What you'll notice about these GP views is that they are the exact same statistics as your per segment PG views with one additional field, GP segment ID, to show which segment each record is coming from. And other than that, they're the same. So all the same information. And so what this shows us in the case of GP stat wall is that as expected, right, our coordinator is having, some, much less right ahead activity, than the actual data segments. We also see that segment 0 here is starting to pull ahead a little bit, and that's interesting to know. In this case, it's a synthetic workload, but if you're seeing skew on some of your statistics across your segments, this is a great place to spot that. You want your workloads distributed evenly across your segments to really take advantage of the massively parallel style that Greenplum affords you, and skew kind of ruins that. Here's a great way to keep an eye on that. So if we fire up our synthetic workload again, we can see these numbers start to tick up rapidly. And again, we'll start to see segment 0 pull ahead a little bit from the others. So super useful. We'll go ahead and stop that. All right. And these are great. These, I think, will be very helpful. I hope they're very helpful. We did add one additional feature, a sort of one final layer on top of these for some of our views. So again, I mentioned earlier, Greenplum clusters can have dozens or hundreds of segments, and maybe you don't want dozens or hundreds of numbers. Maybe you're monitoring your alerting. It would be best to have just one number, and when that number spikes or dips, you want to know about it ASAP. So we've written summary views that aggregate all of these statistics up to one cluster-wide number. So in this case, it would be the sum of wall bytes, the sum of wall records. It's always going to either be a sum or an average or a latest. Right? You want to aggregate up to one number. And we haven't written these for all of the system views, right? So PG stat SSL, it tells you about the encryption properties of your SSL connections to your segments. There's not really a meaningful way to aggregate that, so we didn't make one. In the documentation for the GP views, you will see a note about if it has been aggregated into a summary view and the name of the summary view. We stuck with a very tight naming convention. It will always be GP underscore view name underscore summary, so it's fairly easy to know the name, but it's written there for you just in case you need to check. Let's take a look at the one cluster number. So there we go. Wall pressure for my entire cluster at a glance. If we fire up our synthetic workload again, we will see this number start to climb as expected. And yeah, this is where you would point something like you're monitoring for wall pressure. Done and dusted. So that's all I have to share with you today. I hope this is very helpful for you as you monitor, maintain, and care for your Greenplum clusters. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day.